Here's something I want you to think about as you are watching this video, and that is white people treat their criminals as victims, and they will make our victims criminals. Let me say it again. White people treat their criminals as victims, and they will make our victims criminals. You know, it's always been that when white America cries, they expect us to grab the Kleenex and wipe their tears. When white America bleeds, they expect us to come running with something to help stop the bleeding. But when we cry or when we bleed, guess who's supposed to suck it up and take it on the chin? About 3 years ago in Joliet, Illinois, Eric Glover and Terrence Rankin were killed by 2 white men and 2 white women. The details are just horrifyingly gruesome. But if you want to read the entire story, I'll put a link in the description box to view at your discretion. The story didn't get a lot of national attention. In fact, it took me forever to find it. Now, of course, the victims in this particular story are black and the criminals were all white. If you click on the link, you'll see a comment made by one white woman in the comment section. In defense of the white killers, she brings up black on black crime. And then she says everybody commits crime and to stop making everything racial. The problem is the majority of the white community calls the Chicago beating and kidnapping a hate crime, which is also racializing it. Even though when they do the same thing to us, we're not supposed to talk about it as a hate crime. The black men who were killed by the 4 whites, even in that case, it wasn't considered a hate crime. The 4 whites who killed the 2 black men didn't get national exposure for this crime. It didn't get aired repeatedly on every news station. This story didn't get the criticism that the Chicago beating story is getting. And don't get me wrong, this is a horrific crime, but the difference is the white criminals, no matter how heinous or horrific the crime they commit, they always get the benefit of the doubt. The black criminals, I guarantee you, they'll get the book thrown at them. Even if they're innocent, they will get the book thrown at them, especially in the court of public opinion. The court of public opinion will decimate their character. The media will try to destroy and discredit any and every positive opinion of us. The white media will always dominate the narrative. They'll always have control of the story. And they, for the most part, always try to paint us in a different light. And it's almost always negative, even if we're innocent. And white people will try their best to paint their criminals as victims and try to make the world view our victims as criminals. Add on to that all of the police shootings of unarmed black men since then. And then on top of that, add on to all of the racist attacks on blacks and other people of color since the nomination of Donald Trump. And those same kinds of attacks that happened all the way up to the election of Donald Trump. And let's not forget the white football players who sodomized a black disabled teammate with a coat hanger and got to walk free. I'm reading the article here, and it says that the white football player who was the ringleader in a vicious assault on a black mentally disabled teammate will not be put in jail or have to register as a sex offender. The Idaho prosecutors allowed him to plead guilty to a lesser charge. His name is John R.K. Howard. He pled guilty to a single felony count of injury to a child after he and 2 other teammates violently attacked the 18-year-old victim. The sexual assault came after months of race-related bullying and discrimination against the victim. He was called Kool-Aid, chicken eater, and the N-word by his fellow teammates. But of course, the justice system wins when you have the right kind of skin, because thanks to the plea deal, Howard will serve no jail time, and chances are he'll be able to have his conviction dismissed once he has successfully completed his probation. The prosecutors have recommended that he at least get 300 hours of community service for the rape committed. They also allowed him to maintain his innocence even though he pleaded guilty. Are you listening to this? According to Deputy Attorney General Casey Hemmer, the behavior of the attackers was egregious, but it didn't constitute a sex crime. We don't believe it's appropriate for Mr. Howard, who was the ringleader of the attackers. They didn't want Mr. Howard to suffer the consequences of a sex offender, but he still needs to be held accountable. So they wanted to give him a slap on the wrist, even though he did such a horrifying crime against this disabled black teenager. And white people are silent. They are still silent about this. And you're asking for not only my sympathy, but the sympathy of all black folks in this country for the Trump supporter who was kidnapped and beaten in Chicago? You won't get it from me.